extra rowdy tonight.
Exactly. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order, the Thursday, June 7th meeting, 2018, at 6:35 p.m. In attendance is members DeFrancesco, Pace, and Galdenzi. And the first order of business are the minutes from May 17th. So let's see, we had, I was here, okay, we can do it, we're all here. Yep. Does any, oh, we have copies, good. Here's a copy, I'll give you a few minutes to look it over.
I'd make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 17th.
Second?
Yeah, you got a second?
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes pass unanimously. Okay, next order of business under number 4 is planning items, discussion. 4A is discussion regarding zoning regulations on production and distribution of medical marijuana.
So at the last meeting, there were some questions that were asked regarding kind of what the state looks at and how it regulates the medical marijuana program. So yesterday, I went to the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers meeting, and they had the commissioner from the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection present on this topic. So in front of you is a PowerPoint presentation, and I emailed it to everyone as well.
Mhm.
So I thought that you'd want to look this over, and I know Ron had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So the big takeaways that I got from it was that the state does a very kind of cursory overview. They look at the location that the applicant wants to locate their dispensary or production facility, but they don't measure from a park, a school, a
Yeah.
playground, any of those things. They just kind of get a feel for where it's going to be. And some of the towns that were in the audience had concerns about, well, you know, because there's a round that's open right now. So towns that don't have moratoriums, some towns are getting numerous applications supposedly that are going to the state, but the towns are only hearing rumors that that's happening. They don't actually know if the applications are going to be coming into the town because they have to get approval from the state first.
Okay.
But at the same time, they're having some people come to their town hall saying, well, we've applied to the state, so now we want approval from you, and they haven't received anything from the state. So it's kind of like this chicken or the egg like scenario, because the state typically requires a letter from the town, but it's not mandatory, it doesn't sound like. So just in thinking about our regs, I think we would want an approval from the state to be
Yes.
submitted.
I think one of us mentioned that.
Yes, I think that was in the draft. And then the question of the pharmacist license, so that's required. It's clear that you have to have a licensed pharmacist, so someone who is licensed by the commissioner of pharmacy or however it works from the
Okay.
state. So it's the same as a pharmacist at CVS or Rite Aid.
Okay, that's good to know.
It would be that type of education.
Really?
Yep. However, it sounds like that gentleman explained, they can hire other people. They have to get that license that they pay for their other employees to work there. So
Okay.
someone could be going to the dispensary and checking out with someone other than the pharmacist, but they still have to be licensed.
So the licensed pharmacist is the one that's actually breaking everything up and done. The person
Right.
checking you out could be whoever.
Exactly. However, they do have to have some kind of approval through the state or a license,
Okay.
forgetting that
A
gentleman's.
certificate or.
Right.
Yeah.
So like Ron's scenario, he said the licensed pharmacist could be in Florida, but have a facility in North Branford and be hiring people. That, it sounds like that person has to, at least, if they're dispensing and
Yes, has to
stuff,
be on site,
they have to be on site.
correct, right.
They don't have to be there every,
No,
all the
but they have
time
to
when
be
it's
as-
open, but they have to be that,
Associated with that facility, I believe, and
yeah,
at
exactly.
least,
Okay. Know what's
there.
going on and
Yeah.
controlling what is going on, yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
right.
I mean, that's kind of what I figured, because,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't hear that much concerns about
Correct.
that side of things.
Right.
It's really where it fits your town people, or like, cause it's coming to their town.
Right,
I mean,
right.
yeah, clearly if it was being done maliciously, or the way Ron described, there'd be more in the, media about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and one gentleman spoke, he was from he currently works in Avon, but he had worked in Simsbury and wrote both of those regulations. And his feeling was like, this is not really that big of a deal, and it was those two towns' regulations that I looked at drafting ours based off of, and that's where they had the pharmacist requirement.
Mhm.
But I asked him about that, and he said it's pretty much redundant, because
Okay.
the state law already requires it.
Yeah.
That's good to know, cause that
Mhm.
seemed to, it stuck out from all the other regs.
Right.
But the clarification definitely helps.
Right. So I think keeping in there the distance from the park, school, playground, churches, and then requirement that they provide proof that they've been approved by the
Yeah,
state.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So then the other questions that were asked, I still have to ask the town attorney, so some of them were, one was just, should we split up the text amendment for the dispensary from the production facility, because if one fails,
Yeah.
do they both
Mhm.
fail, or how does that work? So I was going to ask them that. And then, of course, I'll just run the whole regulation
Yep.
application by them before we submit it. So I'm thinking, if I can get it for the next meeting, I'll aim for that, and then
Yep.
have the public hearing realistically sometime in August,
Mhm.
because if we'll need a month's timeline in
Yes.
between,
Yeah.
and we only meet once in July. So, yeah, that was it for that.
That makes me feel
So you
better.
mentioned people, this was a meeting, there are people in the audience, you said, so there's people in the audience for these meetings?
Yeah, so the Casio it's called, they meet 4 times, I should know, since I'm the secretary.
Yeah. This is
But
how
I'm
you film me.
relatively new, I know. It's great organization,
Send
really good
video clip to
organization.
them.
I think it's 4 or 5 times a year. So some of the meetings are half day, so this was half day, so it started at like 11:30, there's lunch, and then there's typically 2 speakers.
Yeah, I see what you mean by audience, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. No, it's
I
not
got you.
like,
I was-
It's like
yeah,
similar
in like
to
an
what I was saying.
Yeah, it's not
auditorium.
for the
I was
public,
thinking
it's
this,
for-
I was putting
Oh,
myself
yes.
in like this,
Oh,
yeah, I know
right.
what you mean,
Yeah.
never mind. That was a stupid question.
But, no, but if you guys are ever, like, interested or able to attend, they are good
Yeah, a lot of good
seminars.
information.
And then they did actually announce the date of that legally, not legally required, it's the legal update that's at Wesleyan that Trish went to, so that's
awesome.
going to be in March, so I'll send that
March,
email around.
St. Patrick's Day every year.
Yeah, well, it's this year it's the 23rd or something, yeah. So, that's a really good one, to go to.
Yeah, I do want.
Yeah, that's a
I've been meaning to try
treasure.
to-
It's
good.
really good.
Yeah.
It's long,
Meaning
and you're
to go
paying,
there, but-
it's a lot of energy, cause you're paying a lot, digesting
But
a lot of
especially
info.
with
That was
updating
awesome.
the POCD this year, I think it could be
Yeah.
helpful. So on to that. I went to the town council meeting on Tuesday, and the council approved our specs for the POCD, which is great.
Okay.
So now it's going to be released, probably tomorrow it's
Oh, good.
available. And then the bids are due back July 12th.
Great.
So we'll get that underway.
Do you have people in mind, or is it just go
Mhm.
out
Both.
as a public notice or something?
Both.
Papers, yeah.
Yep, so public
Just
notice in the
specifically
paper.
send it to people,
Yep, and then I'll send it to, consultants
Mhm.
that
Yep.
completed surrounding towns'
Yeah, good.
plans. I'll put it on the planner's listserv, that's a lot of towns put it out on that.
Oh, yeah.
In case because there's consultants on there, or
Mhm.
planners who serve as consultants. Yeah, so that should be good. So Then over the next few meetings, I just wanted to get your feedback on who you think should make up kind of the committee for reviewing the proposals. In Branford, they had 2 people from planning and zoning. They invited me, they had their economic development person, and then the town planner. I think that was it, so 5 or 6.
They had you on there,
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which could be
Yeah.
interesting to have
Objective.
an
view.
outsider.
They just did theirs, right, you said?
They're in the process,
They're in
yeah,
the
right.
process, so if you could, yeah.
Was
Right.
it every 10 years
They-
again?
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, yeah.
Well, we could talk more, but I don't know if anyone has a specific interest. I thought Harry's, he said he does a lot of proposal reviewing and stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Mm,
So I
mhm.
thought he said he was specifically interested. But yeah. I would if no one else, but if someone has a really strong desire, obviously I'll be involved in the process of the
Right.
plan of conservation and development.
It might have been Harry, or it could have been someone else, that you had your main group of the 5, and then you had the additional people, helping, like just as, to
Oh.
review and everything, but it was those 5 people that picked.
Oh, the decision maker.
Yeah, the
you're right,
decision
that's right,
makers,
yeah.
so if you wanna
That's
extend
true.
it out too.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
That's right, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we did talk about that.
To
you're
share,
right.
yeah,
Mhm.
share all the proposals with the commission at least, and.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, someone had suggested that, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm remembering that now, maybe it was you. Like we could send it to a bunch of people, but.
Mhm.
Exactly, but it'd be those
Designate
5 that
five.
would be the decision maker.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I
Trying to get
can't.
consensus of 27 people, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So,
Good.
that's that.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the next item is receipt and scheduling. So the receipt of, we received a 3-lot subdivision application at 67 Totucket Road. It already went through wetlands. It's the Silly Putty Factory.
Okay.
So I just wanna show you because you're
Didn't
not
this just,
really
like, they withdrew it at some point and then they came
Yes,
back?
exactly,
Okay.
that's right. I'd forgotten that. So, just wanna show you, so we're just really accepting the application tonight, they have to go to WPCA.
Oh, yeah, so they gotta install
WPCA.
sewers.
Right. And there's just a
Extend the,
few
sewer
questions that
lines.
Kurt had.
What's WPCA stand for?
Water pollution
Control.
authority. So,
It's part of the town, it's a town council, basically.
yes,
They're-
right, but they're
Oh.
technically
Serve-
2
they
separate
serve
boards,
both,
but it's
yeah.
the same body that
Yeah.
makes up.
Okay.
So
Same
if you want,
people.
if you want to extend, cause it's money and stuff, resources, if you wanna extend water or sewer.
Okay, them first.
Then they have to.
You said it
approve
went through wetlands already?
Mm-hmm. So because if they don't get approval from WPCA, then they wouldn't
Yeah.
most likely
Continue.
build. I mean, they could still do septic, but their plans would change.
Okay, yeah.
So it comes, there's nothing
Where's Route
this
80?
way, right? Route 80's this way.
Okay.
Yes,
So it exists to here or something, so they have to extend it up.
Oh,
right,
okay.
exactly.
And it doesn't exist this way.
Yep,
There's
I
the
think it's right
subdivision.
here.
This is the subdivision.
Oh,
This is
there.
house here and then house in the front.
Yep.
This is the silly place.
Cause how
Building
far
right
up
in
is
the
that
front.
from 80?
It's south,
Three-quarters
it's
of
south
a
It's
of
mile?
the.
almost
Going
to-
Is it a
towards
mile?
Branford?
Like Snake Hill Road's like right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's decent way,
Branford-
cause you have to
Actually,
bring
Branford's right here.
information.
This is,
Yeah.
this is the
Yeah.
Branford town line, I think, right
Right,
here, right?
yep.
Right here.
Decent amount to bring it down, but yeah.
No, maybe in further, yeah. Is this building
Well,
going?
it's already like here or something, right? I think it goes up this, right?
The property line?
No, the sewer.
Yes,
Sewer
so I
comes here,
think
they're
the
just extending it.
sewer
Okay,
is
it's
to
already
right
coming
not
down that
from
road.
80, yeah, it's
Oh,
already
okay,
down the
gotcha,
road, I'm
gotcha.
sorry.
Okay.
The sewer's right to there.
Yeah, right to here.
And
They're
then the
just,
black.
they're just extending
Oh.
it to accommodate these two
Yeah.
houses.
Gotcha.
This building staying here?
Mm-hmm, yes. They're looking for a reuse and a tenant,
Yeah.
but they
Okay.
haven't.
As a business or change it into, I don't know, a house?
What's it
Yeah,
currently
I don't
zoned
know.
as?
I mean, you know, we've kind of said it would be really neat to convert that into housing, but, yeah, I mean, it would be very modern, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes.
And I don't know how much work needs to be done, but apparently the building's in good shape. So if they could also find like a small industrial use, that would
True.
be great too. but it's in a residential zone, so then you have to think about, okay, what kind of use is not going to really disrupt the neighbors?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tricky.
Yeah.
The whole project is challenging, and, you know, wetlands took a good amount of time to look at it, because this is very
Sidewalks
steep.
on it, yeah.
It's really, all these lines show that this is very, very steep slope,
Mm-hmm.
and there's water here.
Water bubbling up.
Yeah,
around here.
Oh,
there's
interesting.
cisterns there, and then another one, where else was it? Here.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a culvert that exists here, so the water goes under the ground there.
Okay.
But it was kind of like backfilling into here, and this really wasn't flowing, so they're proposing these improvements and this berm
Say,
here.
that sounds like,
And then they're
Mhm.
proposing a driveway here, so they would have to fill this area of wetlands and put in this piping, this culvert here.
Mm.
So it's a good amount of work, and they have to cut into this hill
Jesus.
to get this up and flat. So this is all regrading, and there's not really much of a yard here.
Yeah.
that's
But-
interesting.
Yeah, so, the other interesting thing about this, though, and this kind of gets to the last item, is, so, in our zoning regulations, it talks about, distance from a, driveway, right? So, it talks about if you have an interior lot, which this is, you need to have a certain amount of frontage or a right-of-way. And when you have a right-of-way, then you have to have a 50-foot setback. So just kind of putting it in plain language, one line of thinking was, okay, you don't want to have a house right next to a driveway. You know, so you want to be, if you have an interior lot here, you don't want someone to just have a 15-foot setback, because that could be a bedroom, and then you have cars
Yeah.
going by all the
I see
time.
that, you're talking
Mhm.
to this, right, I was gonna say, these are fine then. but
Right.
you're into this, yeah.
It's just when you
Is it
think
weird?
of, you know, a subdivision, and you
Yeah.
have, in town, we
Yeah.
have a lot of interior lots. So
Mhm.
if you have these interior lots, then what should the setback be from that driveway? And we had to talk with the town attorney to get their interpretation.
What's the current one right now?
These new
Is it
applications
50 or?
flood holes and
The
all.
regulations?
Yeah, the current one.
So it's how you read it,
Well, we haven't
so,
approved it yet, so.
so let's see.
Always how you read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's these commas and the or,
Ugh.
Yeah, remember that article you sent around
The
Yes.
Oxford comma.
about war?
Yeah.
Oh,
It-
nor,
some
the
people-
both,
it was
Oxford
here, right?
comma. Mm-hmm.
That whole case, that
And they
was
won 'cause there
literally
was no
because of a
comma.
No comma.
They won a lot of back pay.
I can't even remember the specifics, but there was no comma, so it read, if you read it literally, had a whole different meaning, where comma, it had
Mm-hmm.
an entirely different meaning. They meant for the meaning to be with the comma,
Yep.
but there was no
There
comma,
was no
so,
comma, so
and it
the-
went to.
The workers won. I think it's just state, I don't think it went all the way upstate. It
Yeah,
went to the
it went somewhere to
state
some
Supreme Court in
judge.
Maine.
Anyway, yeah.
So for this, so this is what our regulation says, this is for interior lots. The lot shall either contain a strip of land which is everywhere not less than 25 feet in width, connecting to a
I'm already
street.
confused. Go ahead.
That's the width of, right now it's talking about the width of the driveway,
So,
right?
a strip
Right
of
now,
land
yep.
which is everywhere not less than 25 feet in width, connecting to a
Okay, so
street.
it's-
So you have to own a
Okay.
25-foot strip
Yep.
of land
Yep,
that
connecting
connects to the street.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's all that says.
Yeah,
So
right now.
that's
that,
Let me break
so
it
in this
down.
situation, that does.
Bring it up for
Okay.
me.
So in this scenario, that lot
Yep.
that they're creating meets that regulation.
Okay.
So that's where the town attorney said, if that's the
Stop.
case, you stop.
Stop.
There.
Okay.
Whereas what I had been doing is continuing, which is, or shall have
Oh,
a
or.
frontage of 25 feet or more on an easement of access or private right-of-way, which is everywhere not less than 25 feet in width, connecting to a street, provided that no more than 2 lots may, for sole access, rely upon
Mhm.
such an easement or right-of-way.
That makes sense, cause it's or, not and.
Yep.
Right, so then if you read
Because
that second
'cause
one
you can't-
again,
you're both using it, so it
Yeah.
has to have an easement, because
right,
one owns, what other has an easement for it to use it.
so.
One goes
so
here,
read that
one goes
again.
here.
So say they don't have 25 feet connecting to a street, but they have 25 feet of frontage or more on an easement of access or private right-of-way, which is everywhere not less than 25 feet. So they have an easement over it to get to their interior lot.
Mhm.
If that's the case, what we were doing,
But they
They
don't
own it.
They own it, right?
they own it. So
So
this
I
doesn't
agree.
apply
Yeah,
to,
okay,
to
right.
this situation. I'm just,
Yeah, no, I
what I'm
understand.
trying to,
Mhm.
talk through is the situation. What I'm trying, I think we want to avoid having a house be able to be built only 15 feet from a driveway.
Yeah.
So
Why,
we
what
may want to
else?
look at our regulations.
Is there something in our regs that would allow that? You wanna
Yes.
keep reading?
So, right now it's being allowed, so if
Oh,
we,
yeah,
because
yeah.
the lot
'Cause
either
there's
contains a
nothing-
strip of land which is everywhere not less than 25 feet in width connecting to a street, which that does,
Yeah.
so
So you'd have to have a secondary condition.
you'd have to have,
Cause right now it doesn't speak to that at all.
right, the
So
distance.
just
from
talks
this
about
building
So-
to this
Yeah.
building
way
is
that-
15 feet? I mean, from this building to this driveway is 15 feet?
The building to the property line is 15 feet. But the way that, if you continue to read that second part, if you have an easement of access or private right-of-way, when you look at, street line,
Mhm.
so the definition of street line, because that's what we try and figure out, okay, so the setback from the street line. Let me find this.
So easement.
Street line shall mean the right-of-way, easement, or taking line of any street or of any easement of vehicular access or private right-of-way, 25 feet or more in width. So what I had been doing is I was saying, oh, okay, that's a driveway, right? It's an easement of vehicular access or private right-of-way that's 25 feet or more in width. Therefore, there has to be a 50-foot setback because it's considered a street line.
Mhm.
But the attorney said, no, there isn't an easement.
'Cause it's a
They
driveway.
own it
Yeah, there's
in
no easement
fee.
in this.
Yeah.
So, when I look back, cause Kurt helped me and looked at, historically how planning and zoning had treated this going back, and it's consistently inconsistent.
Hmm.
So in some situations for interior lots, there's a 50-foot setback.
Mhm.
In some places there's not.
Is that just by chance, or was it specifically?
Case by case.
Well, I haven't,
Yeah,
See,
that's-
that's
kind of-
that
I haven't-
whole
Could've just
Yeah.
been by
case
sheer
by
luck,
case
right?
that
It could-
creates
I don't know.
inconsistency.
it could've been by chance, it could be that maybe those that were not 50, setback 50 feet had the 25 feet or more of frontage and it wasn't an easement. Because it sounds like they only need that 50-foot setback if there's an easement. So I'm just throwing all of this
Which is.
out there.
Which is kinda silly that it's only that,
Yes.
because it doesn't, that
Protect.
has nothing to do with the consideration what you're trying to protect.
Yes.
Because just because if there's, like you said, if there's two houses here, right, they share the driveway, this house one owns it, the second one has an easement to use it
Yeah.
by right, and they're over here, but they're shining their lights here.
Right,
So we're saying you can't do that, but if it's solely owned, it's okay, and they're still shining their lights in there.
right,
So we're really not
Right.
achieving what you want to achieve.
no.
Yeah, I know.
And I can look at what other towns do,
Mhm.
Yeah.
to see how they handle interior
Yeah,
lots.
that's interesting.
Now, for this one case, is there room for them to actually do that 50-foot setback?
Not
Or
with,
is that
no,
space there?
That's where maybe.
not with the
Yeah.
existing building. If they knocked that building down and then rebuilt it. But that's where, so I raised this to them and they started pushing back and they're like, no, I think you're interpreting it wrong. And then I was like, let me talk to the attorney, and then the attorney was like, yeah, no, it's, you're looking at it the wrong way. So,
Yeah.
because they would have needed a variance.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
currently, probably right, because
Right.
because it says or.
Yes, no, and that makes
'Cause-
perfect sense, now
'cause
that
it says
I've
or. It
understood
says, yeah,
where to kinda
25
just stop
foot-
and.
25-foot owned
Right,
or, so, well, no, it's that, so
Right.
let's stop.
right,
If it was and, that's different.
yeah,
Right.
yep.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of something to think about, with
I mean-
interior lots.
Cause, it's like, if it's a whole new subdivision and you're buying it, buyer beware, but this could have been an existing, and then,
Yes.
someone subdivides here and all of a sudden they I'm here, you've been here 57 years, you know, and all of a sudden someone's driving in and shining their
Can I
lights in
play
your
devil's
bedroom.
advocate?
Mm.
What is so bad about being only 15 feet from the driveway? Because like, I know in my house, like people that, as they come down the street two streets over, their lights are shining in the bedroom window the entire mile
Yeah.
they come down, you know, and
Yeah,
the windows are open in the summer and I hear the
Yeah.
cars on 17.
right.
I hear the neighbors, coming in their driveway and leaving and their lights when they turn. So I
Right.
just think it's,
Well, and for the
is it
smaller.
that bad to be 15 feet when you're?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not
transient?
something, right, it might not be something to be concerned with. I mean, if you look at,
Because maybe we have a condition, you can't park here, you can't
Yeah.
maybe have something here sitting.
right,
I think, for me, I think the thing I just described, like new subdivisions,
Mm.
you know, if it existed, if it was a new subdivision and you bought this lot, was the last lot, and you're like, well, you know, it's that close, so be it, but
You
just
know,
think,
yeah.
this was, you know, this was this is your property, and this was all just, you know, someone else owned all of this, and then they subdivided, all of a sudden they slapped something 15 feet away from your bedroom window.
So,
I
no, I'm
understand,
trying to
15
think that, 'cause,
versus
like, I think,
50, I
like-
mean, what's 15, but
I-
15 versus 35?
Like my bedroom window, I
Yeah.
see and hear them coming in the driveway across
Yeah.
all the time, and it's more than 15 feet, but
No, I
how
know,
many
yeah,
feet do you
yeah.
have to be? You have to be
Yeah.
quite a bigger distance for it
It
to
is
not
just-
disturb you.
yeah.
So even 50 feet, I would say isn't enough, because I almost gonna measure
Yeah.
it when I go
Yeah.
home, but like,
I-
when my windows are open in the summer, I hear them all the time, I hear them
Mhm.
on their back deck.
Well,
Yeah.
So it's
So-
kinda like, maybe the inconsistency was more of a case by case, cause there's a hardship, and
Yeah.
if it's,
Mhm.
if you're just moving in, cause your bedroom window could be right here, and you hear all the traffic on Totucket. So what are we gonna say, you can't
Yeah,
drive on
that's true.
Totucket after night? So I feel like, if that's a concern, maybe we could put a condition, you can't, put parking here, or storage here, et cetera. You have to keep it moving, but, again, what's, like this, it could be, you hear all the traffic on the street, so it's kinda like,
Mhm.
I don't see the case to make it, a permanent, maybe we do leave it case by
Mm.
case.
So if the
Well, in the
house.
case that Bill said, could, if it was there, and not to say this example, but, okay, you had that house that was there, and then you had the easement or driveway go in and everything, could it be, okay, well, you just put that in there, out of respect of them, can you put some kind of vegetation barrier
Yeah,
there?
put
Out of respect,
There
cause
you
like you
go.
said, but like
Right.
you said, if
Mhm.
Bill is like, hey, you're the last one going to this complex and everything, he knew that, then it's like, well,
Right.
you knew what you're getting into.
Cause you can't say, I'm frustrated about people coming in their driveway, but it's okay that, hundreds of cars are going by me.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
setback between houses is 50 though, right?
Between houses.
If this was, if we were building a house right here, like the
No,
lot, and
it's 15, I think,
it's 15, right?
15, yep.
That's what I thought. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just playing it out like
Sorry, I thought you
if,
said 50.
if there was I did. If there was a house right here, they could build their garage right here and have their driveway going into a garage within 15 feet. So it's really no
Mm.
different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
say what you said again so I can understand it.
I was just trying to, so the setback for a house, so
Mhm.
trying to play the same
House to
scenario.
property
If
line?
you built, if we weren't talking a house here, we were talking a house right in the front, next to this house.
Mhm.
The setback's 15 from a house, so you could put your
Oh,
garage
nice.
on this side and you have that same driveway situation.
Yeah.
That is allowed now,
Mhm.
so this really isn't any different.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
we
to
could,
your
we could
point.
clean up,
Yeah.
like,
And
we
the Al's
could
point, you could
clean up the
always-
language to
Yeah.
be consistent with what you just discovered, if you want
Mm.
better language in there, easement and driveway, but, yeah, I'm just thinking about, I feel like the houses over here on Route 80, like, they're all, cause they're a half acre, they're very close, I mean.
Right, and I guess that's, if it's existing and, the smaller lots with, interior lots, that's on R40 land. So, everyone has at least an acre, or just under an acre.
I mean, maybe it
And
is
the
worth
interior
exploring,
lots
see what
are
other towns say.
60,000.
And explore that, look at what our regs say
Yeah.
about if a house was over here, maybe we wanna just align it to what else is in our regs somewhere
Mhm.
else, and
Mhm.
not just, I mean, it's worth still exploring.
So if there's an easement, then is there a you're saying it?
It's a
it is
larger
a
setback.
larger setback.
Yes.
And that's probably
Right.
good, because say this whole area was a subdivision, so it
Right,
was
so
like a
there's
loop
multiple,
road.
so that's
It was a
probably
loop road.
why, so there's
So
more
then
vehicles.
you have, it's not just one, it's
Right.
not two, it's 17
Yeah, and I can
cars.
understand that.
There's 32 houses back here,
Correct.
like that
That
place
makes
in
sense.
Northford, so you've got
Correct.
constant
Yeah.
traffic.
Yeah,
That would
That's
be,
different.
that's, yeah,
Right,
that's a
okay.
nuisance, so
That
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense. Whereas single house, it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
yeah, especially with also your point pointing out, if you were to build a house here, you'd have the same, issue.
Mhm.
Good.
Yep.
So the real interesting thing, this is what I thought you were gonna say, is when we were doing the site walk, we
Have a
saw
house.
these,
Oh,
these concrete things with these metal like tracks, and we were wondering what it was, so Kurt did some investigation, and there used to be a company that made ejection seat accelerants, and they used to test the injection seats. So they had it on a rail system, it's up in the woods up
And the
there
company
still.
was
Still
based
see
out
it
of
here?
here, or
Yeah.
based out of here?
Okay.
Back, they
They-
moved out like
They
in the late
didn't have to clean it
50s,
up?
in the late 50s.
No, the like remnants are still there,
Yeah,
but
it's
they did
the
do a
remnants.
phase 2, which I haven't read through yet, but that they've done an environmental report that they're
Yeah.
submitting
Yeah.
because some of the
Oh, yeah.
neighbors had concerns about that, so,
Phase
But-
2,
yes,
oh, okay,
yep.
Alright.
that's
So
digging,
this, the
digging and
houses are
testing.
phase
And
one?
groundwater sampling.
Oh, phase 1 is just, phase 1 environmental assessment is you investigate prior uses and make
Oh, okay.
determinations, like more intellectual determinations. Phase
Mhm.
2 is you actually do testing,
Mm-hmm.
you actually go subsurface and look for stuff.
Is that because there was a business, there were
Yeah,
businesses
so,
on there?
in the inland wetlands, people brought up that, what I just said, they were using
Accelerant.
accelerants and stuff, and they
Mm.
were concerned for soil contamination, but I don't know. It looks like it's all surface stuff they were doing testing, but who knows?
So I'll forward, do you want a hard copy?
No, I think so.
Or would you rather have an electronic?
Electronics fine
Okay.
for me, yeah.
Agreed, let's see. paper.
Okay. That is everything.
That's it.
Yes.
Is everyone here on the 21st?
I'm not here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be
Is that
here.
approved by the chairman?
I know, seriously, I'm usually always here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm here.
I'll take I'll leave without pay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, there you go. Zing. All right, we're good?
Yes.
Okay. We're all set? Yeah.
Okay. Make a motion to adjourn?
Second? All right, all in favor?